Good day, dear viewers and listeners of the YouTube channel of the magazine International. This is Fritz Edlinger speaking again. I welcome on the other end of our system, I assume in Brussels or Strasbourg. In Brussels, our old friend Michael van der Schulenburg. And this is the first time we are speaking in your new role. You can already see it from the official background of the picture. In your office, as a newly elected member of the European Parliament, where you were elected on Sarah Wagenknecht's list. I officially congratulate you, and we have an exciting topic right away. You have already experienced a negatively historical resolution of the European Parliament in one of your first sessions. Also vote against it and even have a brief opportunity to speak, namely the umpteenth tightening resolution on the Ukraine-Russia conflict, on the war in Ukraine. Before I speak at length, I assume you will refer to it anyway and take a position. It is mainly, as we have already published and sent out in Austria, that it has taken another step forward, in the sense that with an overwhelming majority of the European Parliament, it was essentially not only supported, but demanded the fastest possible delivery of long-range missiles for Ukraine, so that Russia can be fully attacked and engaged. Yes, tell me from your perspective how you experienced it, how you experienced the session, and how you assess the significance of this resolution.
Yes, so that's my first experience. I arrive here on July 16th, sitting on this terrible chair in Parliament, which is very heavy, and once you sit down properly, you can't get out again. I'm standing there at the table on the 16th with this resolution, 3.5 pages, and then it's already being voted on the 17th. There is actually no discussion. And on the 17th, only those who supported this resolution were allowed to speak. I wasn't allowed to speak back then. That came much later and then only for 1 minute. Yes, well, I've experienced many wars. As your viewers know, I worked for 34 years at the UN, mainly at the UN, and was naturally always in war-torn countries. So I know a lot about these things. But I have to say I was really shocked. I was shocked that such a document can be adopted in Europe. This is purely, I would say, a call for total war. There is not a single word about negotiations, not a single word that one might perhaps try diplomatically, not even saying we send weapons, but at the same time try to talk. None of that. At that time, there was, of course, Orban's visit to Kiev and Moscow, and then naturally to China and America, which was sharply criticized. So any form of seeking dialogue between Kiev and Russia is seen there as a betrayal. But above all, it is a resolution that comes at a time when essentially the war is already lost. And that's what makes it so incredibly dangerous. It reminds us we know this from other countries as well. We see that the war is being lost. Then they try to mobilize everything once more. So it's about saying solidarity until victory over Russia.
Da wird eben Solidarität bis zum Sieg über Russland gesagt. Darüber wird gesprochen. Also das müsste jetzt alle, wir müssen alle.
This is being discussed. So we all need to stand together until we defeat Russia. Now, I believe there is hardly any military expert who would even remotely assume that this is still possible. We are essentially talking about something that is completely unrealistic. It is demanded that the member states collectively provide 127 billion euros annually in military goods to Ukraine. That is roughly as much as Ukraine has received from 2022 until now. So an insane increase in military aid to Ukraine, which probably has more of a problem with not having enough soldiers, and so on. That won't happen either. And then, of course, there's the call that all Western weapons can also be used on Russian territory. That's certainly new. Other things are added, like joining NATO is inevitable. You can't do that. They will simply be in NATO. And, of course, the red flag for the Russians, sanctions. They now want to sanction third countries that do that. And then, of course, a special tribunal. All these things, these 10 points that we already know from the Zelensky plan, have been presented again, in my opinion, even more strongly. My reaction is, of course, I am familiar with such things, and a bit of it is naturally that something unrealistic has been decided here. The European Union has no influence at all on achieving any of these goals. We don't have the military power to change the war there. We will never raise the 127 billion euros in military aid. Germany has just halved it, and so on. So the NATO membership, I don't see that happening at all, and so on. So something unrealistic is being done. And I think that's the dangerous thing about such a resolution. It provokes, but it does something that is actually no longer enforceable. In my